Hey, what's up, Yaniv here, and I know there've been a lot of videos like this on YouTube recently. And because of that, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how much money I make and how rich I am and why you should listen to me. I'm also not going to have an ulterior motive to try to sell you a program or a course or even get you into some, sort of free webinar or something like that. I'm going to be completely, or at least try to be, as unbiased as I possibly can. I just want to chime in here and give you my opinion on what is the easiest and best way to get to $10,000 per month in profit as soon as possible. Before we dive in, I also want to say that I have tried each and every single business model I mention here. So I do feel like I have some sort of unique perspective on all of them in the kind of good ways and the bad. I'm also going to tier list these because I think that it just makes it more interesting and gives you a good way to compare each and every one of these business models. I watched a video on Bia Hez's channel about online business, and I actually agree with him on a lot of the stuff that he mentioned. Business is like a skill. It takes time, effort, and persistence to really get good at it. Nobody, or almost nobody, is going to put on a pair of skis for the first time, head over to the biggest hill and try to, go down it without crashing. I think in business, it's very, very similar. While all these business models actually work, it's about putting in the time and energy to actually see them through. Bia Hez put a really good analogy on this. He said it's like going to the gym. Everyone knows that the gym will get you fit, but not everyone is willing to put in the work that's necessary 5 times a week at the gym, the diet, and the struggle of actually putting on that muscle and losing that fat. Everyone knows that the gym works. It's just whether or not you're willing to put the work in. No one calls the gym a scam. And that's the way I think of every single one of these business models. With that out of the way, let's dive into the first business model that I think a lot of people stumble upon, which is Forex or even crypto. I think it's probably the most popular business model out there. There's so many videos and also so many views on these videos about how to do Forex or crypto and how to trade and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, it's really not all that great. I mean, technically, you don't need a product, you don't need a service, you don't need to sell anything. You kind of just take some money and then just invest it and make more money. Just click and profit. Like I said, I have experience with each one of these. I actually invested $35,000 a few years ago into some crypto stuff, and it went horribly, horribly wrong. Basically, I lost a ton of money there. It's all because no matter how good you are at reading graphs and predicting markets, the best way to ever invest into something is in the long term, not in the short term. And that's not to say that people can't make tons of money, but let me ask you if this story sounds familiar. You invested a couple $100, you turn that couple $100 into a couple $1,000s or tens of thousands of dollars over the course of 6 months or a year, and then a bad luck streak hits you, and in 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 days, you lose literally everything that you invested. It happens all the time, and I hear these stories constantly, and it's very sad to hear that. That's kind of what happens when you don't really have a product or a service. I don't really think you have a business. Now, that's not to say you can't make a ton of money doing this over a long period of time with a big amount of money. It just means that as an online business model, I don't think it's really worth it. So overall, I give this online business model a score of D tier if you're starting off as a beginner. Now, before we dive into the next super popular models like dropshipping or having an agency, I want to talk to you about one that is still very, very popular. It's one that I have a lot of experience with, and it's Amazon FBA. I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible, but I do have some biases here. It's literally the business model that changed my entire life in the course and trajectory of everything for me. I will, however, be super honest, pull back the curtain, and give you like a real look at what you can expect. Amazon FBA really solves a lot of the problems that most businesses fail, like not having enough customers and not being able to have proper networking and logistics systems, because basically Amazon has hundreds of millions of customers on the platform. They're waiting for your products. They have a built-in customer list, basically, of people who just shop around on Amazon. They also have very, very advanced, if not the best, logistics network on the planet, essentially. And they also take care of your shipping, your returns, and almost all the customer service for you. I think overall, from any of the businesses we mentioned here, it's the easiest to scale. You can stay a one-man team for a very, very long time and build multi-7-figure businesses with, 1 or 2 employees. It's very, very scalable. But of course, there are some big downsides. Like, for example, that you are at the whim of Amazon. If they decide, if they wake up one day and they decide that, we don't support your product, we don't want you to sell your product on our platform, well, then you're gone. I've been through my fair share of that. I've had many products being taken down for illegitimate reasons. Things where the software, the algorithm has a bad day and it flags my product as something that it's not. And all of a sudden I have to prove myself to Amazon and beg them to reinstate my products. And while I always have my products reinstated, it does take a lot of time. You lose a lot of money while your products are down. There's an immense amount of stress as well that goes into that. But there are a lot of ways to get around these things. There are a lot of ways to separate yourself from Amazon and build a real business within the confines of the platform. So overall, again, maybe I'm a little biased here, but this is going to have to be an A-tier business for me. The next one is agency, like social media marketing agency, where you basically provide a service for some sort of client or customer. Some people do graphic stuff and media, and other people do ads and marketing. And the marketing one is probably the much more popular one, so that's the one we're going to cover here. And believe it or not, having a social media marketing agency is actually the first business I ever started, the first online business I ever started. And surprisingly, I did make some money from. I actually had 2 clients making about $2,000 per month. This was way back in 2017 before I even started my Amazon business. And obviously, as you can tell, even though I was making money, I decided to move on from that business because of a lot of things that people don't tell you about. Yes, it does have a high profit margin. And yes, it does have recurring revenue if you do a good job. And yes, it doesn't require that much startup cost to get it going. But there are, like I said, some really, really big caveats to that. One is most of your time isn't going to be spent on providing the service that you're offering. It's going to be on finding new customers. And if you've ever tried social media marketing, you know that that's a pretty saturated business right now. So many people are trying to do that because the barrier to entries are very low, right? You don't need to invest that much. So a lot of people are trying to do this. And you're going to be spending a lot of your times on cold calls, cold emails, and on interviews and meetings with these clients and companies. That's basically what the business is trying to sell your service. It's also much more difficult to scale than many of the businesses we're going to talk about today. It's probably the most difficult to scale because in this business, it really is more money, more problems. And what I mean by that is like the more money you want to make, that means the more clients you're going to have to take on, the higher prices you're going to have to charge, the more convincing in sales you're going to have to do. Also, the more employees you're going to need to manage and control to be able to deliver the services that you're promising. So you can see very quickly how you need to hire out a lot of people to make sure that you can keep up with the clients if you do well. And the third caveat is it's not that beginner friendly. A lot of people will have you believe that this is the most beginner friendly model out there. And basically you can accomplish this with no money and no skill, but that's the problem, right? If you're selling a service to somebody that you're promising to run ads on, grow their marketing and make more sales for them, well, if you don't know what you're doing, how can you possibly promise someone to do that? You're essentially taking their money and using their money to kind of learn on the job, which in some cases may be okay. But when you do it this way, you're going to have a ton of churn. People are going to sign up for 1 month or 2 months. Then they're going to realize that, hey, I'm basically burning money here. And then they're going to fire you. And you're going to, again, go back to the first caveat, which is spending 90% of your time finding new customers and clients. Unless you have a good base in marketing and ads, starting an agency can be very, very good, but it does have some huge downsides. And after really diving into it and pulling back the curtain, I noticed all these downsides, and that's why I decided to move on from that business model. With that all being said, I'd still think it's a really, really great business model, and I'd still give it a B tier business model. It is still a very, very good opportunity as long as you make sure you know what you're doing. And truthfully, my friend actually just recently got to $10,000 per month using the agency model. But I think his trick was, or kind of the reason why he was able to succeed, was because he took the stuff that he learned from a different model, which is the one that we're going to cover next, which is dropshipping, and implemented them into the agency model to be able to get his clients results. So now let's talk about dropshipping, which is also an incredibly popular online business model. And it requires basically of you to create a store where essentially people buy from your store. As soon as someone buys, you take the money that they spend and you buy the product from China and you send it to your customer who purchased. So you're essentially a middleman in the transaction process. Your main business is running ads and doing marketing to be able to attract customers to your website and to buy from you. I actually do have an ethical issue with that. In my personal opinion, there's something about not really changing anything or improving anything or even building a real business. For me, there's something about creating a website and just almost tricking people to buying from you and then you taking that money buying from China. For me, that doesn't sit right. Not to mention the massive dissatisfaction rate with dropshipping models, having tons of customer emails saying that either your product is shit or that it took 3 weeks to deliver. Overall, just I wouldn't be able to do this particular business model. But if you don't have any problems with it, it can be very, very good. And I guess the pro of this business model is that you don't really have to hold any inventory like you do with Amazon FBA. You basically have a very, very lean starting point, but you do definitely need to spend a lot in testing ads and getting really, really good creatives for your website. I think another problem with this business though is that it's kind of a merge between agency work and Amazon FBA. And there are just a lot of skills you need to learn, like creating a very, very good website, knowing about traffic and marketing and advertising. I think there's a lot of skills you need to build before you can get to the part where you'll be successful with a dropshipping business, or at least consistent with your dropshipping business. You know, maybe some months you'll make a ton of money, then you'll go for 6 months without making anything, then you'll make money again. And I don't think anyone wants to live like that. So for all those reasons, I'd give this one an overall C tier business model. I know there's going to be a lot of people who are not happy with that, and a lot of people who love dropshipping, and that's fine. Just for me, in my opinion, I think it's a C tier business model. All right, so now we covered all the main ones, okay? But let's go over some of the kind of lesser known ones and do kind of a quick fire round. Let's start off with affiliate marketing. This one is actually you promoting something to a customer, getting the sale and getting a kickback from the purchase. And I do think this is actually theoretically a very good business model for a beginner because, you don't need to have a product. You don't need to know how to make a website. You don't need to know how to do any back-end stuff or ads or anything like that. If you can get people to purchase with your links or whatever you do, whether you make videos, blogs, if you run some paid ads, basically all you have to do is get the customer to buy. Right? And obviously it's much easier said than done, but you don't even need to worry about fulfillment, the product, or literally anything. In that sense, it's very, very good. The problem is finding something that you truly believe in and not just selling out to the highest bidder, but promoting something you really think is good and can help other people. Now, the downsides of this business are pretty massive. Maybe the highest downsides of all, which is essentially you literally own nothing. Let's say you have kickback of 25%, so you build your whole business on a kickback of 25%. And then 2 or 3 months from now, your company messages you and says, hey, we actually are scaling back our affiliate program because economic times are getting poor. We actually changed it from 20% to 10%, and all of a sudden more than half your income has disappeared. Or even worse, they could say we are done with the affiliate program altogether, and there goes your entire business. And purely because you own nothing in that business model and you're completely at the whim of everyone, I'm gonna have to give it a C tier. And the last business on this list is content creating. And it's also something that I do personally. Basically, if you have some sort of skill, you have knowledge, or you're an expert in some particular facet of literally anything, it could be golf, could be, some sort of sports stuff, could be that you're fit, or a lot about nutrition, or maybe you just know how to dance. Literally anything that you know more than the next person, you're able to turn that into a source of income. And you create content around those topics and sell stuff like protein powder if you're into nutrition and bodybuilding. You could sell art classes if you're a really cool artist. You could literally sell anything to anyone that matches your niche. Content creating has a ton of upsides, but also a huge amount of downsides. It is something that's going to take a lot of time and effort, more work than any of the others that I mentioned. It's not a passive business model at all. You're going to need to be constantly creating content. You're going to need to be constantly engaging your audience and need to be an expert in what you're talking about. And probably another huge downside for a lot of people is that most of the time you need to get in front of the camera. Now, that's not to say that there's not other ways of doing it, but the most effective ones are going to be the ones where you sit and build rapport with your audience in front of a camera. So if you're not afraid of any of that and you have a skill, you're expert in some way, or you know things that maybe other people don't, this is a really, really good business model. Because of that, I'd give it an A tier as well. Now, realistically, there are a million different business models and ways to make money online, and they actually all work, all of them. No matter what I rated them here, they all can work. But the only way you're really gonna see success in any of these business models is to pick one that fits you, right? Pick one that fits your style and what you want your life to be like. Then stick to it and work on it for as long as humanly possible. This won't take 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year. Commit to it taking as long as it takes. Eventually, you will learn the necessary skills to success and you will see the success, but you've got to stick around long enough to see it. And I'll leave you with 2 of my favorite mottos. And these are ones that I, hold near and dear to my heart since the very beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. One is I truly believe you can do absolutely anything you want, but you can't do everything. So like I said, pick one thing and get really, really good at it. And number 2 is it's impossible to fail if you never stop trying. And I want you to think about that for a second. It's literally impossible to fail if you never, ever actually give up. You never actually stop. I think a lot of times in business and in life, it's about persistence. It's about how much you can go through before you see that success. Pick something, stick to it, you will succeed. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.